Hi everyone, long time no see. Um, I have been marking your papers; they're all finished, and the marks will be released tomorrow. That's Friday. So they were by and large really well done, and it was terrific reading your thoughts and responses to how you think neuroscience evidence is challenging Cartesian dualism that we all have grown up thinking, and in fact it is deeply embedded as much in law as in all parts of the way society functions. So that was great for me. It was great to see that you all engaged with those ideas really well and really enthusiastically, and I learnt from all of you too, which is always terrific. Also, just a reminder that your final assignments are due in week 13, but if you're planning to do a question of your own, you need to send me a proposal and the details for how you do that and what I require in that are in the unit of study outline, and the proposal needs to be submitted by the end of next week. So if you're planning to do your own assignment, please send me a proposal as soon as you can. I also read with great interest your responses to the discussions in week 6 and week 8. It was interesting for me that, I suppose it's the nature of these tasks that, students will tend to pretty much write their view and then leave it at that. And your views actually were interesting, but I think actually, it's something that has shown me is that a site like Facebook or a page like Facebook encourages a bit more discussion than than the discussion board format on LMS. But that notwithstanding, it did seem that there was a diversity of views, as there was in the assignments actually, about how persuasive how persuasive you think neuroscience evidence is for courts. At the Neuroscience and Society conference that we just held, there was actually quite a lot of discussion amongst lawyers and the neuroscientists there about the case of the Crown and Lepore, where the 76-year-old chap had gone from being a sort of model older gent to sexually assaulting a young woman in a telephone box and sort of following her and continuing to sort of assault her and act in quite a bizarre way. That case was interesting because initially at sentencing, the judge couldn't believe the psychiatric evidence that there was basically nothing wrong with this guy, just a bit of depression and anxiety. And in the judge's view, there had to be something else, and he actually adjourned the hearing in case there was any other evidence. But that evidence didn't come till later, till an appeal on Lepore's sentence, where some neuropsychiatric evidence was admitted that demonstrated or that argued that Lepore had frontal lobe dementia. Now, it's interesting that the neuroscientists who came to the Neuroscience and Society conference were saying that frontal lobe dementia is in fact characterised by exactly the type of behaviour that Lepore exhibited. But it's not readily diagnosable via scans. So neuroscience evidence isn't always about scans. What we can, and I think you guys are all starting to see that what we can see on scans and what we can know from scans is relatively limited. But if you combine what we know from population studies with what we know about an individual, and we can see from things that they're doing that they're exhibiting signs that they have this condition, then we can also say that this is how people with that condition tend to be. And what the neuropsychiatrists were saying at the conference was that the best way to diagnose frontal lobe dementia is to basically do what the judge did, which is look at the whole person, look at their history, take a good clinical history, speak to their family, speak to their friends, speak to people they work with, and sudden changes of behaviour of the kind that Lepore exhibited are pretty strong diagnostic indicators that this person actually has frontal lobe dementia. And in that case, in the appeal on sentencing, yes, there was this scan evidence, but that was kind of a bit equivocal. But it did sort of satisfy the court that okay, there is a kind of medical / neurological explanation for this otherwise kind of inexcusable behaviour, and that was even though the judge at trial was like, I'm no doctor, but I think there's something wrong here, and that's very much the pattern you see with frontal lobe dementia. Also, in the Week 8 discussions, I was really happy to see that there was a wide range of topics that were picked. People looked at addiction, people looked at gender traits, people looked at adolescence, and the pros and cons of looking for, a neurosplaining behaviour, neurosplaining the characteristics of groups. And, we've sought to do that. Science does that for its own reasons. Science does that because we try to understand populations. From population data, this is the same in all kinds of medicine. From population data, we try to work out how to treat individuals, but then law seizes on that and tries to use it for different purposes, either to help make claims on someone's behalf or to defend people against claims that they've engaged in criminal activity. But neurosplaining, not only does it have its limitations in terms of explaining behaviour, but it has also harms associated with it. I mean, it's quite clear, for example, that in criminal matters, the evidence can go both ways. So something that might be exculpatory, saying that you've got a lesion on the brain and so you're predisposed to behaving in some ways. In some respects, that's exculpatory, but if it's something that is untreatable, then it increases your likelihood of reoffending. So that's a difficult thing with raising neurological excuses in a sentencing context, say. But also, there's that ever-present question of stigma, and that's really what the readings you would have noted were driving you towards noticing. And that is that for every person who is relieved, who finds it, comforting or excusing or whatever, to see themselves in a neurological explanation of their behaviour and to think, okay, it's not my fault that I behave in a certain way, there's others who feel trapped by those same explanations, and there's others who feel that discrimination against people in those groups is justified on the basis of those explanations. So I particularly loved the long-running argument between Cordelia Fine and Simon Baron-Cohen. Cordelia Fine is a neuroethicist and feminist, and she has systematically taken Simon Baron-Cohen, who is a UK-based neuropsychiatrist specialising in actually boys' brains and gender differences in brains, and they have had public set tos over the years on the validity of that evidence, with Cordelia Fine saying, well, the thing is that, when you say things like women are less competitive than men, maybe that's because, you're looking at studies which are getting them to compete in running or something that, women aren't particularly interested in, or that group of women aren't particularly interested in. But what if you had a competition for, who could wear the best outfit, or, who could make the best souffle after dinner, something that, whatever it might be that's important to that group of women, well, then you'll see women's competitiveness coming out, and maybe the differences won't be as stark as you think. So, I was glad to see again that in your wide-ranging discussions, you picked up on that sort of ongoing tension. But I think that pretty much covers what I had to tell you this week. Marks are out tomorrow. Good luck with the rest of the materials. I'll keep on obviously checking in and commenting on your comments on Facebook and on the discussion board, and obviously be in touch if you need any assistance with anything. Thanks.